cold case reopened after 27 years. The DNA hit that shocked police. For 27 years, the file sat untouched, not forgotten, just silent. It lived inside a gray metal cabinet in the corner of an evidence room. A faded label, a victim's name, a date, July 18, 1997. Dust gathered on the box, but inside that box was something that refused to disappear, a single strand of DNA. And in 2024, that strand would finally speak. The night everything changed. It was a warm summer evening in 1997, the kind of night where the air feels heavy but peaceful. Crickets humming, porch lights glowing softly across quiet suburban streets. At 9:42 p.m., a 911 call shattered that calm. A neighbor had noticed something unusual. The front door of 26-year-old Emily Carter's home slightly open. Lights on, no movement inside. Police arrived within minutes. What they found inside would haunt them for decades. Emily was discovered in her living room. There were signs of a struggle, furniture disturbed, a broken lamp on the floor. But there was something deeply unsettling about the scene. There was no forced entry, no broken locks, no shattered windows, which meant one terrifying possibility. Emily had likely opened the door herself. A community in shock. Emily wasn't someone you would expect to become the center of a crime story. She worked at a local accounting firm, volunteered on weekends, had dinner with her parents every Sunday. Neighbors described her as kind, quiet, trusting, too trusting, some would later say. Detectives canvassed the neighborhood for hours. They knocked on doors, collected statements, searched for witnesses. But no one had seen anything unusual. No screaming, no suspicious vehicles, no strangers lurking nearby. The only clue investigators recovered was something microscopic, a trace of biological evidence beneath Emily's fingernails. She had fought back. That DNA sample was carefully collected, sealed, and entered into the system available in 1997. But back then, forensic databases were limited, primitive compared to today's standards. There were no matches, no suspects. The case slowly began to cool. When a case goes cold. In the months that followed, detectives chased every possible lead. Former boyfriends were questioned, co-workers were interviewed, friends were examined closely, alibis checked, phone records reviewed. Nothing stuck. The DNA profile remained unidentified, and eventually the investigation lost momentum. New crimes demanded attention, new emergencies took priority. Emily's file was moved from the active case desk to long-term storage. Her family never stopped asking questions, but answers never came. Years passed, technology advanced, lives changed, detectives retired, some passed away, but the evidence remained, waiting. The reopening. In early 2024, a newly formed cold case unit began reviewing unsolved homicides from the 1990s. The department had access to modern forensic tools, expanded DNA databases, advanced genetic genealogy techniques. One young investigator, Detective Laura Martinez, pulled Emily's file from storage. She wasn't even in elementary school when the crime occurred. To her, it wasn't an old memory. It was unfinished business. She read every page, examined every photo, revisited every witness statement, and then she noticed something. The original DNA sample had never been tested using today's advanced methods. It had been preserved, intact. Laura requested the evidence be resubmitted, not just into the standard criminal database, but into a modern national DNA index system, far more powerful than anything available in 1997. The lab processed the sample. Technicians ran it through upgraded sequencing systems capable of detecting even degraded genetic material. And then, 3 days later, an alert appeared. A match. Not partial, not distant, a direct hit. The name no one expected. The DNA belonged to a man named Daniel Reeves, age 54, currently living 2 states away, married, 2 children, employed as a regional sales manager, no violent criminal history, just 1 minor charge from his early 20s, a bar fight that resulted in a misdemeanor assault. Nothing that had ever connected him to Emily. In fact, his name had never appeared in the original investigation. Detectives stared at the screen in disbelief. How had he avoided suspicion? The deeper they looked, the stranger it became. Back in 1997, Daniel had lived just 3 miles from Emily's house. At the time of the murder, he worked at a supply company that serviced multiple offices, including the building where Emily worked. But there was no official record showing direct interaction, no documented connection. Yet, the DNA did not lie. Reconstructing the past. Detectives reopened interviews, tracked down former co-workers, located old neighbors. Slowly, a new timeline emerged. One former colleague remembered Daniel making occasional deliveries to their office. Another recalled him being overly friendly with some employees. Then came a critical detail. Emily had once mentioned to a friend that a delivery man made her uncomfortable. She didn't name him, she didn't report him, she brushed it off, but the timeline matched. Investigators cross-referenced work logs from 1997. On the day of the murder, Daniel had signed out early from his job. He claimed it was due to a headache. No one questioned it at the time. There were no surveillance cameras, no digital tracking, just paper records and fading memories. But now, the DNA connected him directly to the crime scene. There was no innocent explanation for his genetic material being beneath Emily's fingernails. She had fought him, and she had taken evidence with her. The arrest. In March 2024, police approached Daniel's suburban home at 6:15 a.m. Body cameras recorded the interaction. He opened the door in sweatpants and a gray t-shirt. Calm. Confused, or pretending to be. When informed of the arrest warrant, he reportedly whispered one sentence, "I thought that was gone." Gone, as if time itself could erase the past. He was transported back to the state where the crime occurred. During interrogation, he denied knowing Emily, denied ever being inside her home. But confronted with the DNA evidence, his confidence wavered. Forensic science had closed the gap that time had protected, the science that changed everything. In 1997, DNA databases were small. Only convicted offenders were included. If a suspect had never been arrested for a qualifying felony, their DNA would not exist in the system. But in 2020, Daniel had been arrested for a DUI. Standard booking procedures required a DNA swab. That sample entered the modern database. And when Emily's preserved evidence was finally retested in 2024, it found him. 27 years later. Technology had quietly waited, and when the systems aligned, justice activated. The trial. The courtroom was filled during opening statements. Emily's parents sat in the front row, older now, grayer, but still determined. Prosecutors presented the DNA evidence. Expert witnesses explained how genetic markers create unique identifiers. The probability of the sample belonging to anyone else was astronomically low. Defense attorneys attempted to suggest contamination, secondary transfer, laboratory error. But the chain of custody was intact. The evidence had been preserved carefully, and the science was clear. After 6 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict: guilty. Daniel Reeves was sentenced to life in prison. After 27 years. For Emily's family, justice brought closure, but it did not bring her back. It did not return the birthdays missed, the holidays spent wondering, the years spent asking why. Detective Laura Martinez later told reporters, "This case proves one thing: time doesn't destroy truth, it only delays it." Cold cases across the country are now being reopened. Advancements in forensic genealogy, expanded databases, improved sequencing technology. Criminals who believed they escaped are discovering that science has a long memory. Somewhere tonight, another evidence box sits quietly on a shelf. Inside it, a fingerprint, a fiber, a strand of DNA, waiting for the moment technology catches up. Because no matter how much time passes, evidence does not forget, and neither do the families who wait for justice. 27 years, one preserved sample, one database hit, and a truth that refused to stay buried. The case was never truly cold, it was only waiting.